This gang-run prison in the Philippines is one of the most suffocating prisons in the world. It is chaotic and severely overcrowded. A facility built to hold 1,200 inmates has been crammed with more than 5,000 people. Due to the shortage of beds, prisoners have no choice but to sleep on the floor. To save space, those in the back must rest their legs on the waists of the people in front just to find a barely comfortable sleeping position. When asked why he places his legs on someone else, one inmate replied that he is afraid the other person might get angry if he doesn't. The explosive growth in inmate numbers has pushed prison management to the brink of collapse. Originally, 14 guards managing 1,200 inmates was already difficult. Now, with over 5,000 prisoners, each guard is responsible for about 350 inmates. If a riot were to break out, they might not even be able to recover a complete body. With no other options, the guards have handed over much of the control to gang leaders inside the prison. Although the system is extremely risky, it has become the most practical solution for now. Prisoners can move freely and trade among themselves, forming a delicate balance of power with the guards and creating a unique prison ecosystem. The capital of the Philippines, Manila, is one of the cities with the largest wealth gaps in the world. In wealthy districts, luxury homes and expensive cars line the streets, while just a few kilometers away, poor neighborhoods are filled with crumbling buildings and extreme poverty. These harsh living conditions have long been a breeding ground for crime, where murder, robbery, smuggling, and drug trafficking are almost part of daily life. In 2016, the Philippine president launched a massive nationwide anti-drug campaign. Anyone associated with drugs, users, sellers, or even those involved in production was targeted for arrest. Statistics showed that this hardline operation has seized drugs worth about $500 million and led to the arrest of around 160,000 people. Although the crackdown was extremely intense, it lacked precision. Many innocent civilians were falsely accused by real criminals and became scapegoats. Others remain in prolonged detention due to the overwhelmed judicial system, with some being held for as long as 14 years. A journalist named Shakima decided to enter the prison undercover as an inmate to explore its harsh reality. As usual, he went through detailed registration and inspection procedures, including photos, fingerprinting, and body checks. Guards stamped his arm 3 times, marking that he had been stripped of his civil rights. He was then taken to cell block 4, a holding area for new inmates where he had to stay for 3 days. After that, gang leaders would evaluate newcomers based on height, weight, abilities, and criminal history to decide whether to recruit them. This process resembles a gang-style selection or draft, as joining a gang offers protection and better access to resources like food. The moment Shakima entered the holding cell, he was stunned. In a space of only about 80 square meters, more than 100 inmates were packed together, leaving each person with less than 1 square meter. The smell of feet was overwhelming, and everyone slept tightly pressed against one another, with even turning over becoming a luxury. 2 inmates enthusiastically demonstrated their comfortable sleeping position. One person hugs the other from behind, while the person in the back places their legs over the other's waist. Though awkward, it is considered one of the most practical ways to sleep in such conditions. Sitting next to Shakima was an inmate named Kinkara, who had already been imprisoned 3 times. He guided Shakima through every corner of the cell, especially pointing out a plaque above the entrance. It listed rules and punishment systems set by gang leaders. While it mentioned unity and mutual support, it strongly emphasized the penalties for breaking rules. Gang leaders are respectfully called elders, ranked by levels such as 9th generation, 6th generation, and 3rd generation elders. If someone accidentally bumps into a 9th generation elder, they receive 90 strikes. For a 6th generation elder, 60 strikes, and for a 3rd generation elder, 30 strikes. The wooden paddle used for punishment is as thick as a bench. Even a simple demonstration made the journalist feel the sting. As one of the few newcomers, Shakima and others were quickly assigned labor. Early the next morning, he was told to sweep the floor alongside a group of transgender inmates. From their graceful movements and soft voices, it was clear they held a unique presence within the prison. A 25-year-old named Mashaki, the leader of the group, had been sentenced to 5 years for smuggling. Despite the severity of his crime, he showed no sign of sadness. Instead, he appeared lively and happy, saying that in this place he finally found a sense of belonging where he could be himself without hiding. He even mentioned that he had recently found a partner, making his prison life feel more fulfilling. After 2 days, the selection process began. Shakima was chosen as the third pick by the Bahalana gang, one of the most powerful groups in the prison. Unfortunately, Kinkara was not selected and was forced into another unfamiliar cell, where his life would likely become even more difficult. Soon after, the inmates lined up, placing one hand on the shoulder of the person in front, and were led in groups to the areas controlled by their respective gangs. The inmate standing before them is the most powerful gang leader in the prison, the head of the Bahalana gang. His name is Trimp. Although he was sentenced to 30 years for smuggling, it has not affected his authority inside the prison in the slightest. He is currently explaining the rules to the new inmates. First, members within the gang must stay united and help each other. Second, they must keep their distance from other gangs, no causing trouble, and absolutely no provoking conflicts. These rules exist partly because Trimp is still managing smuggling operations outside the prison, and gang fights only waste manpower and resources. Focusing on development is the real priority. Another reason is that not long ago, his gang clashed with another group over profit distribution. Although Trimp narrowly won, the fight resulted in the deaths of 25 of his men. After that incident, the leaders of both gangs agreed to a truce, promising not to interfere with each other for at least 6 months. With the number of inmates far exceeding capacity, feeding more than 5,000 people every day has become one of the prison's biggest challenges. To ensure everyone gets food, the inmates responsible for distribution must weigh each portion carefully. A bowl of rice must be exactly 300 grams, no more, no less. As for side dishes, they're extremely simple. A thin potato soup serves as the main source of vitamins. At night, Shakima arrives at the gang's living quarters. Like the other cells, the conditions here are equally harsh. Surrounded by a sea of people, sleeping here means either breathing in someone else's breath or enduring the smell of their feet. After struggling mentally, Shakima manages to squeeze into a narrow passageway where he spends a miserable night surrounded by 8 pairs of smelly feet. Compared to ordinary inmates, Trimp lives in luxury. He has a private cell with a separate bedroom and living area. It is clean, well lit, and fully furnished with a bed, desk, and television. He even has 2 electric fans, making it feel incredibly comfortable. Interestingly, although everyone can see his privileged lifestyle, no one dares to complain, partly because of his authority, but also because they genuinely respect his leadership and character. Trimp often organizes activities beneficial to inmates' physical and mental well-being, such as working with guards to invite dance groups to lead group dances, or bringing in veteran inmates who have served over 30 years to give lectures on life philosophy, teaching newcomers how to become better members of society. This system of prisoners managing prisoners in the Philippines may be effective for now, but many guards and civilians see it as extremely risky. It is, after all, a compromise with inmates. In the long run, if the gangs ever decide to stage an escape, it would not be difficult at all. Still, this is the harsh reality of prisons in the Philippines, a world where inmates and guards coexist in a fragile balance. If despair had levels, being wrongfully imprisoned would rank among the worst. The Rizal prison, located in the capital Manila, has become a symbol of injustice. Out of just over 150 inmates, more than 110 were arrested without clear cause. Some may have been misjudged, others framed, but that hardly matters anymore. What matters is that these suspects must wait for their chance to appear in court through a lottery system. When their case will be heard depends entirely on the efficiency of the judicial system. Many prisoners wait for years, even decades. Even more disturbing, the prison is controlled by a gang leader. Guards, aside from routine roll calls, barely participate in daily management. The gang leader divides inmates into strict hierarchies. Those at the bottom not only endure physical punishment, but also handle all kinds of menial labor and may be harassed constantly by other inmates. In other words, during their years in prison, they suffer not only injustice and despair, but also become the lowest of the low within the prison hierarchy. The Philippines is one of the few countries where the judicial system remains under constant strain. Even in Manila, pursuing a lawsuit often depends on money or luck. The city covers only 638 square kilometers, but is home to about 13 million people. This overcrowding and widespread poverty have driven crime rates higher year after year. Every week, more than 140 murderers and over 700 rapists are reported nationwide, while smugglers, thieves, and illegal gangs are countless. With such a high volume of cases, the pressure on law enforcement and the judicial system is enormous. Not arresting suspects is not an option, but once arrested, determining their sentences becomes another problem. As a result, many so-called prisoners are detained indefinitely while awaiting trial. Who gets a court date first often depends purely on luck. The journalist Shakima once again enters the system, this time to investigate the reality of Rizal Prison. He is handcuffed and transported in a prison vehicle. After more than 40 minutes, he arrives at the prison gate. Guards conduct a manual search, take photos, and record his fingerprints. Then, using an old typewriter, they slowly type in his information. Once finished, they shut the gate and leave him waiting alone, chatting among themselves. A sense of unease washes over Shakima. Minutes later, a gang leader named Trimp walks out, waves his hand, and orders him to follow into the depths of the prison. Trimp is also the leader of another gang known as the Sponic Gang, holding absolute power within this confined world. Trimp is not only a gang leader, but also the supreme ruler inside the prison. He was sentenced to 28 years for multiple rape charges and is one of the few inmates here who is actually guilty. He explains that the prison holds a total of 150 inmates, including 130 men and 20 women. Although guards strictly control the outside, inside it functions like a closed-off society. Prisoners enjoy a certain degree of freedom. They do not need to lock their doors when sleeping. They can cook their own meals, and most areas are open for movement. If both sides agree, male and female inmates can even form relationships and have children, adding a bit of relief to their otherwise dull lives. The only rule that must be followed is the gang hierarchy. In the male section, Trimp himself is the top leader, while in the female section, a woman named Mashaji holds authority. Together, they are known as the Black Wind Duo, controlling everything inside. Shakima is assigned a bunk bed as his temporary living space. Although he is treated as a guest and protected by Trimp, he still feels uneasy when he learns that the person above him is a murderer and the one below him is a rapist. Sensing his fear, Trimp reassures him that as long as he gives the order, no one will harm him. Even so, Shakima cannot sleep on his first night, especially with a creepy bald man staring at him the entire time. The hierarchy inside the prison is strict. Gang leaders hold absolute power, followed by gang members, while ordinary prisoners sit at the bottom with almost no rights. They are assigned all kinds of chores, and if they disobey, they face punishment or solitary confinement. For example, one inmate behind the iron bars has been locked in isolation for an entire year simply for offending one of Trimp's subordinates. When he will be released depends entirely on Trimp's mood. Of course, there is a way to avoid hard labor: either join the gang or pay a large sum of money. In this place, you must lose either your dignity or your wealth. Shakima begins his work at the lowest level, starting with cleaning. He spends half an hour scrubbing the floor with a coconut husk under his feet, then carries water to fill every bucket, and finally cleans the toilets and walls. The restroom is suffocating, with temperatures exceeding 35 degrees Celsius and a stench so strong it almost makes him vomit. While lower-level prisoners suffer, gang members live relatively comfortably. They drink tea, watch television, and even dance when they feel like it, as if they have forgotten their circumstances. About 200 meters away, in the women's section, a 42-year-old leader named Mashajin is shouting with excitement. She is also one of the wrongly accused prisoners. Falsely charged with smuggling, she spent 8 years behind bars. Now, after finally getting a court hearing, she has been declared innocent and released. However, not everyone is as lucky. A male inmate named Kinkara has had the worst fate. After discovering his wife's affair, he only intended to confront the other man, but during the argument, he seized the man's knife and accidentally killed him. During his 14 years in prison, he has hoped for a retrial to prove self-defense. But when the long-awaited hearing finally came, the judge instead sentenced him to life imprisonment because the man he killed turned out to be a police officer. The news shattered him. Even more heartbreaking, just 3 months earlier, he and a female inmate had a baby girl, and all his hopes for a better future vanished instantly. Kinkara is soon transferred to another prison 50 kilometers away, one with even worse conditions. Before leaving, his fellow inmates give him small amounts of money, and even Trimp is deeply saddened, as Kinkara has been his closest ally for 14 years. That's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to my channel to support me.